Oh, thanks everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest is one of my favorite guests. Last time he was here, he was talking about his acclaimed one-man show, Sakina's Restaurant, and now he's back to talk about Evil, a new show Aasif Mandvi is starring in on CBS. Let's take a look. Everybody, please put your hands together for Aasif Mandvi. Let's hear it.
Thank you.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming back.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. Let's talk about Evil. Michelle and Robert King, creators of The Good Fight and The Good Wife. Seemingly, you know, a departure for them in terms of what the show's about. But actually, before you came on, I was looking at Robert King's IMDb. He has done literally everything under the sun, and as far as stories go.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they are amazing storytellers, and you know that was one of the reasons I wanted to do the show because, you know, you get offered. You get scripts sent to you all the time. For pilots, and you know, and sometimes you read them and you go, I don't know, this will pay the bills, I guess.
Right.
But
which one were those? No, just
exactly. Let me list them for you. This one was one where I read it and I thought, oh, this is really good, and I'm a huge fan of the Kings anyway because I think The Good Fight is one of the best shows on television, and you know, The Good Wife as well for so many years. But I read it, I thought this is really good, and it's really smart. And it was a character that I haven't gotten to play before. You know, I spent a good deal of my career wearing lab coats or business suits, right? And so this time I get to drive a pickup truck and wear plaid and work boots and be a guy who works with who's a physical guy who fixes things and
Were you surprised that they went out to you for that?
Well, it was I didn't think that I would have been, I'm not the obvious choice. So I actually, thought it was, you know, it was surprised, but also hugely honored and complimented that they liked what I did for the audition and then cast me in this role. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been, you know, my character on the show is a little bit of a MacGyver type, like he sort of fixes things, and he's kind of so the show is about three characters who are investigating paranormal activity and demonic possession, miracles, things like that, and my character is the pragmatist. He's the atheist who doesn't believe in any of this nonsense, and he's going to figure out how what we think is paranormal might be explainable.
Right. That sound is actually creaks in the floorboard.
Exactly.
That is not a ghost.
Or something. Yeah. Or you know, or something you wouldn't expect it to be.
How often has he met with the unexplainable?
Well, that's what's great about the show is that the answer, every episode does not tie up with a neat bow at the end where like mystery solved, you know. Sometimes things aren't solved. Sometimes there are things that continue over several episodes and we're still struggling with those things to sort of answer. There's one particular storyline that comes up in the season where then later on you realize that my character is still struggling with why he couldn't figure out what this thing was and how this thing happened. And
so it's not your classic procedural.
No, not at all. It actually has a much more of like, it's got storylines that are about our personal lives and about our relationships and about our own demons that we're struggling with. So each character is sort of struggling with their own evil stuff that they're dealing with in themselves, you know?
Right. And I feel like you've done classic procedurals before, right?
I've done, you know, I've been on all of your Law and Orders and your Blue Bloods and, you know, all of those. I think I'm on the Law and Order Most Wanted list, which is actors who have been on more than 5 Law and Orders.
You have 5 of just Law and Order, or all of the Law
all
and
of
Order?
Anything on the franchise. So I think I've done all of them. I think I did, you know, SVU and.
Do you have a favorite Law and Order character that you've played?
I played a judge on Trial by Jury, which was a lot of fun. He was like an evil judge. Evil. There you go. It was a theme. But he was this young sort of very conservative judge. So again, it was interesting. I was an interesting casting choice for that. But that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
One of the things that I liked about Evil is one that it's not a procedural entirely, and in some ways it subverts the idea of the procedural because you expect it to be that. Like you expect this team of ghost hunters or paranormal hunters to have a new case and then work through it. But I think because Michelle and Robert King know television so well. They kind of know exactly how to
Yeah.
play within that field.
I think it does go to places that you don't expect it to go. It does have a procedural element in the sense that there's a new case, and the premise of the show is that the Catholic Church is sending us out to investigate these different paranormal things. So there is that element to it, but then it goes off into places that you wouldn't expect. And again, the relationship between these three characters and their relationships internally in their own lives also take up a good deal of real estate on the show.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Do I believe
Yeah,
in
why
ghosts?
not?
Yes.
I mean, that's what we're here talking
I
about.
know,
We're
I
talking
know.
about ghosts.
I have to say, I probably believe in them more than I don't believe in them.
Same.
So, you know what I mean?
I'm
I'm not, right.
But I have this general sense sometimes that
Right.
unfinished business, there's some sort of spirit
Well,
in
I
this
think,
place.
and I don't know if it's unfinished business. I don't know what it is, but I know that there are things out there that we can't explain. I think, unlike my character on the show, who believes that everything is explainable, I do believe that most things are explainable, but then there is a realm of where we don't have the answer. There are things outside of what we can taste, touch, smell, feel, you know, and so that is something that I don't know why. I don't know if it's a ghost or if it's a dead person or whatever, but I think there's a realm that we don't see.
Yeah, and unfinished business is the wrong way to put it. I would say bad vibes, right? Like
Right.
universal unconsciousness vibes
Yeah.
put into the atmosphere
Yeah.
of some kind,
Right.
and you can sort of feel that in a place.
And I don't
every
even
now
know,
and then.
and I wouldn't even judge it as bad or good personally. I think it's just energy that exists out there that is beyond what we understand, you know, but beyond our five senses. Because
you
we
ever
are
had-
very limited. We only have five senses, right? And we experienced everything through that. And our brain is not that large. So there's a lot, you know, maybe when you do drugs, for example.
Say that's what opening
you
that
know,
third eye
that
is
third,
for.
the whole thing, you know, that they talk about. Yeah.
Have you ever had any experience with something like that? Not the third eye drugs, but
Right.
the
Sure. Yeah. I haven't, but I think I might have. I don't know if I have. I mean, when I was on the Daily Show, we spent some time at a hotel in Austin. We were down there for one of the conventions, and this hotel was haunted, and so. And it was haunted to the point that, like, they had a registry at the hotel where you could tell them if you saw a ghost, and the front desk person would be like, "Oh, thank you very much. I'll log that in our registry." And they had one like going back like 200 years, or people like from the 1800s who were like, "I saw a white figure in the thing," and you know, like, and so. We go to this hotel and I'm just like, why are we staying here at this place? You know,
So you see
And-
that on your way in.
I see
would
that on
only
my
see
way
that
in.
on my way
that-
out.
I hear about it, that there's this registry that if you see anything unusual or a figure or anything moving that shouldn't be moving in the hall, floating, like you should tell them. And I'm like, I don't want to see any of that. I don't want. And then we had other people on the show who were like, I'd love to see that. That would be so amazing. And I'm like, no, I don't want to see that. But I stayed up the whole night. I couldn't sleep in that hotel.
Of course, I wouldn't be able to sleep.
And I actually, the woman who is now my wife was then my girlfriend, and I actually called her and just talked with her until like 3 o'clock in the morning. The poor woman was trying to go to sleep. She was like, well, I should go to sleep. No, keep talking. And I just kept talking to her. She was like, this guy's really into me. And so
You know why you were calling to talk to her, or were you just making shit up and trying to
I
like
did
keep the
eventually tell her
conversation
that,
going?
you know, there was something creepy going on. And I did start hearing noises outside the door. So there was something, you know, like I wasn't sure.
Don't you think that registry should come up as you're checking out? Like, oh, I'm checking out.
Yes.
Oh, by the way,
Right. It should be the
some people
last
say
thing
we
they
have
tell you.
ghosts. Did you
Right.
see anything?
Yeah,
Not like,
but apparently this hotel, and I'm forgetting the name of it now. I'm sure somebody will Google it. But it's famous for this. So people already knew going in that, you know, if you, it's sort of almost like a, you know, it's part of the appeal of the place. Apparently, not to me, but to other people.
you know, you said that you usually play characters in lab coats or
Yeah.
business suits. What is it like to get the chance to play a part that you haven't really gotten to play? And how often do you get that chance? How often does someone offer you something that you go, oh, that's
Yeah,
new?
I mean, you know, occasionally that will happen, and that's always fun. You know, I came up in the business playing a lot of doctors, and you know, and then of course the Daily Show, everybody wanted to put me in the business suit, you know, or some kind of suit. But occasionally I got offered a role a few years ago on a show called A Series of Unfortunate Events on Netflix, where I got to play an adventurer, like a British sort of, you know, with a mustache. You know. So it's always fun as an actor to step outside of your comfort zone and outside of the things that you normally get to do. And so, this was one of those things where I felt like I was playing a guy who was different than me. He was very, his belief system was not like mine. He carried himself in a different way. He was much more physical, and he could fix things. And I can't fix anything. So
no MacGyver,
I have no MacGyver qualities at all. So this guy is completely the person I wish I could be.
On the same day that the show is premiering, the 26th, I believe you are also launching a podcast, right?
That's right.
This is a podcast about objects in the Smithsonian?
Yeah, it's called Lost at the Smithsonian with Aasif Mandvi. And it's really an interesting thing. They came to me, and the podcast gods, they came and they said, would you like to do this podcast? And I said, okay. And I thought about it. And then they said, well, you can pick your own 10 objects. And we're going to and they're all connected to American entertainment history, just to, because this is like 150 million objects at the Smithsonian. So we narrowed it down to just American entertainment. And so I got to pick these 10 objects that had some kind of personal connection to me. And it was really amazing. And I got to go behind the scenes and into the sort of, into the attic of the Smithsonian and look through all of their stuff and pick what I wanted to pick to talk about. So
you mostly picked stuff that wasn't on display.
Yeah, it was, right, exactly. Yeah, they didn't want me to, no, although we do Archie Bunker and Edith's chairs as two of the, and they are on display. And the ruby slippers. We also, one of the episodes is about the ruby slippers from Wizard of Oz, and those are on display. In fact, they're the most visited object at the Smithsonian.
When you do something like the ruby slippers and you're doing a whole episode about it, how much do you find, how hard is it to not go off the rails just exploring other parts of the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, well, one of the great things about this podcast is that we do end up having conversations that go into places that you don't expect. I talked to Henry Winkler about Fonzie's jacket, and that was really cool. And we ended up having a whole conversation about being an actor and how he inhabited that role and where that role, because he's so not like Fonz, and how did he find that character? And then we ended up having a conversation that led to like sort of masculinity and the exporting of American masculinity around the world, and what did that look like? And Fonzie sort of represented this thing, because I grew up as a little brown kid in the north of England watching Happy Days and being like, that's what it means to be an American man, hey, and click your fingers and girls come running, and and so what does that mean in today's world? And it was a really fascinating conversation with him.
Again, it's so interesting because he's not like that
not at all.
And I'm
he's
sure
like
for
this
years,
really nice sort of nebbishy Jewish guy,
I'm sure for years he had to kind of deal with everybody assuming he was kind of like
well,
that.
we talked about like, what is it like to be a sex symbol when you don't regard yourself as a sex symbol
you want
in
at
any
all.
way at all, And so that was his answers to all that were really, really fascinating. And we talked, and I talked to him. I talked to.
But that's so interesting. It's like the difference between Brad Pitt and Henry Winkler, which is like at a certain point in like 1994, Brad Pitt was like, "I'm a sex symbol.
Right,
this is gonna be great. I'll do it."
Yeah.
Henry Winkler was like, I'm a sex symbol? Okay, like that
didn't
so
quite grow into the sex symbol thing.
Yeah.
No, but also we talked about his career, and how winning an Emmy after all those years of doing the Fonz and not winning the Emmy and finally getting the Emmy later in his career and stuff. So it was really a fascinating conversation with him.
Who did you talk to from The Wizard of Oz?
Surprisingly, no one, because
not many of them are around anymore.
They're all dead. But we talked to the curators and we talked to people visiting the ruby slippers. There's people, it's like, like Muslims around the Kaaba. Like it's literally like they surround the ruby slippers and there's like a prayer vigils being held outside, in front of it. It's an iconic thing at the Smithsonian. People bring their kids and everybody. So we talked to people who were visiting it, why, and the surprising thing about the ruby slippers is that there's actually more than one pair. And the two in the Smithsonian are not from the same pair. They're mismatched pairs. And the other two that are also mismatched are in the Judy Garland Museum. And so it's like we had this really interesting conversation with the curators and the people at the Smithsonian about how they came to have this pair of slippers and how they ended up being this mismatched pair, and they didn't know for a long time.
Are they two right and two left? I mean, I guess not if they
No,
didn't
no, no.
know.
It's like the right one from
One and the left
batch
from the
and the left one from another batch. You know.
Were you always an entertainment connoisseur or like a pop culture nerd or fanatic?
I mean, I've always been kind of like obsessed with pop culture. I grew up, I grew up on it, and so I guess maybe, entertainment, Hollywood, pop culture, that's always been something that is floating around in my head all the time. I never thought that, this started off as kind of like, oh, okay, this will be, we'll just talk about these objects. But what was really interesting was where these conversations ended up going, and they go way beyond the objects themselves,
Yeah. You also some pretty big news. You're being honored at the North Fork
What?
TV Festival, right?
When? What? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I am very...
You and
I'm
Kelsey
humbled
Grammer and Constance Wu, I believe.
I guess we're all being honored at the North Fork TV Festival, which is doing some really cool independent TV stuff now, and and different things. So, I just found out about this, and so it's really exciting. And I've never been to North Fork. I hear it's a beautiful part of the country, so I'm excited to go there.
What is it like when you're getting honored for something like that?
It's I always approach it with a sense of I completely deserve this. I clearly what's taken you guys so long is my it's always
Accept it like Dirk Diggler's second adult award.
Exactly, thanks, thank you.
Walk
finally. Off. No, it's always an honor to get awarded anything by anyone. Sometimes it feels humbling. When I was on The Daily Show, I would get sometimes organizations, Muslim organizations, honoring me or wanting to give me an award. And I actually went to one where they were giving me an award for my work on The Daily Show. And then the guy before me, who got an award also, had just had his parents beaten up by Assad's regime in Syria. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I should not be here right now. This guy should be getting an award.
More of these guys, not this and that guy.
So it always, but it's great. I mean, I'm so I'm thankful too.
I mean, it must be not strange isn't the right word, but just last year you were here for Sakina's Restaurant, your one-man show, which was really the first thing that you had ever done, right?
Yeah.
Before The Daily Show, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was way before because we originally did it 20 years ago.
You hadn't really been noticed yet,
Yeah,
and to be having done that, and to a year later be getting honored with something like this for really all of your work in television. Does something feel kind of full cycle here?
Sure. I mean, look, I never take awards lightly, and I was honored that I got them, but I also can't take them, I never let it sort of define anything about what I think of myself. I'm still the same person who is trying to figure out, the
next job,
the next thing, worried that I'm never going to work again, so that kind of stuff,
And I believe in a couple months you have a show coming on Hulu, right, with Sharon Horgan?
Well, it's actually out now.
Oh, it's out now. Excuse me.
Yeah. It's a British show with Sharon Horgan, who people know from Catastrophe, and Aisling Bey, who actually created and stars in the show, and it's called This Way Up, and it's a beautiful, dark comedy about a woman struggling to put her life back together after having had a nervous breakdown.
How did you get involved in the show?
Aisling knew of me. We had a mutual friend. She actually she was working on a show called Living With Yourself that my friend Tim Greenberg created and wrote with Paul Rudd, starring in it. That's coming out on Netflix.
Oh, yeah, the one where he's playing two versions of himself.
So Tim is an old buddy of mine from The Daily Show, and I guess she was looking for an actor in this show that she was creating, an Indian Brit. And Tim said, my friend Aasif grew up in England, and he's Indian, and so maybe you give him a call. And so then she just called me, and I just met her for drinks at the Ludlow House, and she was like, "Do you want to play this part?" And so I was like, "Yeah, great." So
you didn't have to audition?
No, I didn't actually. No,
best.
It was great. And then she showed me a little clip of the teaser they did, and it was so great. And I was just like, "Yeah, I'm in. I'm doing it." So it was great. It was a lot of fun. It was the first time I got to work in England since I had left many years ago because I grew up there, and so then to go back to the UK and actually be on a UK production was kind of fun.
Did you have a thicker English accent when you first?
I did. I used to talk like this. I used to have a northern accent like that.
Really?
Just like that. I was talking just like that.
A real? Is that real? Wait, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were making fun of me.
No. When I got off the bus in America, I was like, oh, hi, right, which way to, it was just, that's how I used to talk. And then it slowly eroded away, and the Americanism started to,
Did you try to get rid of it, or did it sort of go away on its own?
I literally just.
You were fairly young when you moved.
Yeah, I got here like when I was 16, and so I mean, most people would not have lost their accent, but I think I'm just a sponge that way, and so I just adopted. It slowly started to go away, and then pretty soon, people sometimes still hear the British in, there'll be, I'll always meet one person who's like, I'm very good with accents, and I can tell that you grew up in Swansea, and I'm like, actually, that's in Wales, but it'll be like, I'll have people like just sometimes be like, oh, I hear a little British thing in you, or a little, sometimes even people hear Indian. Like they start to trick themselves. They go, I think you have a little Indian. And I'm like, I left India when I was 1. So I don't, unless, yeah. But
I was sitting here listening, wondering if I could hear English before I asked that question. Because I didn't want to be like, do you still have an accent? You're like, yeah, I'm talking in my accent right now. Thankfully.
No, I literally, and it's always fun for me when I get to do the English accent. Although this show, when I did it, they cast me, and then Channel 4 that did it in England, that aired it in England and produced it, they were like, we need to hear his English accent. And then they had me doing different versions of English accents and sending it on my iPhone to the producers just so they could hear like what kind of English accent they wanted me to do. So it got really traumatic for a while. I got really stressed out because I was like, I'm going to get fired from this because I'm not doing the right English
I
accent.
am English. Come on.
I know.
Did they end up choosing like one of the 4?
Yeah, they just decided to have me go with like a sort of a nondescript London, and then a Brit who has lived in America for a long time and now has come back to England.
So
you know what I mean?
So
it allowed me a little leeway,
I think we have time for a couple questions from the audience. Who's a question? Right here.
Hello.
Hello.
I was wondering what were some of your favorite scenes to shoot of Evil?
Gosh. So we're still shooting the show right now. We're actually in production right now, and there's an episode. I don't know if I can give anything away right now, but there's an episode where I got to punch a wall. That's all I'll say, and it was really fun.
Is that not something you've ever gotten to do before?
No, and it was kind of crazy because it didn't call for it in the script necessarily. It just said like I do take things, rip apart the wall, and then I punched it, and then realized, I got to do this now 15 times, and so
the carpenter on the set was like that.
I was like, it started off with me being a real, sort of badass, like punching the wall, and then like after about 8 takes, it was me with an ice pack on my hand. Could I get more ice for my? It was that. So it sort of deteriorated very fast, but it was really fun to play to do that scene.
Yeah, I feel like that's not something I've ever seen you get the chance to do.
I know.
Play extremely angry.
Yeah, it was. Again, I don't want to give away anything plot-wise, but there was something going on where I needed to prove something was not a ghost / miracle / demon, whatever. And the way I did it was by punching a wall. Just all I'll say.
The way you said it didn't sound punching a wall.
I punched a wall.
One more question.
Hi, I wanted to ask about the podcast with the Smithsonian, if there's any item or moment from your roles and the movies you've done and the TV roles you've done that you would like to see as a part of entertainment history. That's
at the Smithsonian?
Yeah, it could be there anything that's important to you.
I would love to see my mustache from a series of unfortunate events at the Smithsonian. It had this amazing mustache that went on like this, and it just curled, it went on like this, and it was such a fun thing to wear and just to inhabit that character, So
how much fun was that show to be on? It seemed like everybody who was doing that show was be as broad as you can possibly be, and we're gonna have these incredible sets all around.
It was so fun. It was literally you got to be larger than life. I mean, it's when you're an actor and they say, just come in and chew up the scenery, it was literally that, just do it, just be a ham. And so,
It's also nice to see Barry Sonnenfeld get the chance to sort of
yes.
prove his vision once again.
Exactly,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't think anybody he'd gotten the right movie or anything for a few years.
Well,
and
he was
giving him
supposed to
that.
originally direct the movie of it, and then he didn't. And so I think this was his way of finally telling that story in the way that he wanted to tell it. But it was great. It was so much fun, and just playing characters like that larger than life. You only get to do that in the theater, or usually like in Shakespeare or something. So whenever you get to play roles like that, like when I did the movie The Last Airbender, it was like larger than life. We got to wear these amazing costumes and sort of, and it felt Shakespearean. It felt like sort of, so that was another example. Those things are always fun to do, to sort of play those larger than life characters.
Yeah, because usually, I mean, if you're doing like a Law and Order episode or something, you kind of show up, hit the mark.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that it's easy or anything, but
No, but it's a different type of thing. It's much more in a world of in a real world, Whereas when you get to play fantasy, and it's kind of what you do as a kid when you just dress up and and run around in the backyard with your friends,
Yeah. Well, Aasif, Evil comes out September 26th,
September
Thursday.
26th, yeah.
And on the same day, your podcast as well comes out, right?
That's right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Everybody give Aasif a huge round of applause for stopping by.